Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 115th episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. Well, with Nora having a little resurgence in the last couple weeks, despite it underperforming a little at the BAFTAs, I thought, hey, everyone is talking about this movie and saying they love it, but have they watched Baker's other movies? Because I've been a Baker fan for a while now, and I truly think that his films are a special slice of life look into the underbelly of America. They represent the values of the people we don't usually see on screen, the people most people try and run away from. He takes these flawed yet lovable and oddly relatable characters and puts them in our face, not for us to point and laugh or judge, but to show you, hey, we're not so different after all. It's a crying shame it took all the way up until Nora for people to recognize this guy who's been making movies for 20 years. He's been writing brilliant screenplays, and I'm very happy he's finally getting noticed. But why did it take this long? What was it about his movies before that lacked the mainstream appeal? Or is it that we live in a time where more marginalized people have a voice? We live in a time where I think that people are a little more willing to watch movies that show people who aren't like them or look like them or live like them. Indies, foreign language, and genre films have been more at the forefront in the last few years. I can't really say why. Maybe the world was just sick of seeing the same old vanilla stories, but I'm all here for the weirdness. It's always good that times change, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. So Sean has made 8 features technically, but his first film, Four Letter Words, is pretty hard to find, and I haven't seen it. Sean himself said the movie was bad, so I'll take his word for it. If I do end up seeing it, I'll update this list with it, even though it'll likely fall last. So we got 7 features, and I hope you guys will go and watch some of these if you haven't seen them. His work is worth seeking out. So guys, do me a quick favor, like and subscribe, help me hit my goal of 700 subscribers by the end of spring. Follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader, I'll link it below. And let's get into Sean Baker Ranked. Number 7, Takeout, 2004, co-directed with Shi Ching-so. Takeout is an interesting Baker movie. I really don't feel like it's fully his story, but more so of the co-director, Shi Ching-soo, whom he has collaborated on almost all of his movies with. She's a great asset to Baker, and it's cool to hear a story that is relatable to her. Takeout is a day in the life of an undocumented Chinese immigrant who works at a Chinese restaurant. It shows you how rough the pursuit of the American dream can be and some of the things you have to do to make it, because freedom isn't free. This movie is cold and sad and unfortunately too predictable. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in an upsetting way. Because like a lot of Baker's movies, they have real endings, not fairy tale ones. Even though I'm putting it last, it's absolutely still worth watching. I'm not saying it's one of his more rewatchable movies like some of the other ones we'll talk about soon, but if you're a Baker fan, you still gotta see it. Number 6. Prince of Broadway, 2008. It was really hard picking whether this was going to go here or the next movie, but it ultimately landed here. And honestly, there's no shade to that because I think this is where we see Sean's brilliance as a writer. Prince of Broadway is about a hustler in New York City that sells fake purses, who has his life flipped upside down when an old fling dumps a child on him he didn't even know he had. This is where we see that Sean's locations are co-leads in his movies because this movie is very uniquely New York. It wouldn't work any other place. We also see that Sean is fantastic with first-time actors. You will not recognize anyone from this film unless you are a Sean fan, and you'll know Karen Kerguelen, who is in a lot of his films. This movie has a lot of charm and heart and is very sweet. It's not a story we haven't seen before, but you've never seen it in this way. Honestly, this movie pretty much has everything that most will come to love from his newer movies, just on a smaller scale. People who normally wouldn't be in the movies, a great ambiguous ending, and a bunch of actors you normally don't see. This movie has that gritty, grainy look to it that will not be a staple in Baker's movies. Low budget, minimal, and simple set designs, but maximum effectiveness. This movie, low-key, is an underground masterpiece in a weird way. It's one that made me smile as the credits rolled. Number 5, Starlet, 2012. I went back and forth with this one being at 6, but I thought about how magical this movie is and I couldn't put it behind Broadway. Starlet honestly feels like Sean's brightest movie and most friendly. Our lead, although a sex worker, is so normal, sweet, and kind. She is just a girl living her life with her cute little dog, Starlet. Starlet reminds me of Three Colors Red in a way. You got this young girl who befriends this much older lady in a weird way, and they form this precious bond that you can't help but gush over. Dree Hemingway is great in this movie and brings a sweetness to this character that I think needed for it to work, and Basetka Johnson was incredible as the elderly friend. Sean found this lady at a YMCA. It's here we start to see the really crisp editing, gorgeous cinematography, unique and flawed characters, and the use of his regulars. It's the subtleties in this movie that make it great. It's a very simple story and it's played in a simple way. That's why it works so well. I was fascinated when I saw this movie, and that's when I knew I couldn't wait to see more from this guy. This is the one where you really see the style come from Baker that will be apparent in his latest 4 movies. Number 4, Anora, 2024. I know Baker fans and familiars of his work are probably scratching their head right now as to why I have this at 4 and not in the top 3 or number 1 even. Well, I'll tell you. Anora is an incredible feat for Sean. He figured out how to break into the mainstream and finally get the recognition from his peers that he deserved. Anora, although done very well, editing is insane, acting, direction, all of it is great, but for me, it lacks a little bit of the charm and heart that the other Baker movies have. After watching it 3 times, I must say, there's something missing here for me, and I'm not sure what it is. I've watched it very carefully, trying to figure out what it is not making it hit for me the way the next 3 or even Starlet did for me. Now, I may prefer to watch Starlet again, but this is a huge feat in filmmaking, and I can't ignore that. Honora is about a sex worker who marries the son of a Russian oligarchs. Now, Honora has so much style and flair. What a look it has. The goons that deal with Honora in this second half are incredible, so funny. Mikey Madison was fine in the movie, but I must admit I don't love her performance as much as everyone else. She is good, do not get me wrong, but I don't think this movie lives and dies on this performance like everyone else does. It's still well directed and acted by the co stars. I also don't think it's one of his best screenplays. This is a familiar story with a Sean Baker twist. Still, we get that classic Baker ending that's dark and beautiful all at once. And this movie is going to go down as a masterpiece in the eyes of many. I'm so happy Honora is doing well this award season, even if there are other things that I may be rooting for more in some categories. I hope Sean gets all the love, money, props, and the respect that he deserves from this. Number 3, Tangerine, 2015. This, or maybe a later film on here, might be his funniest movie. Tangerine is about 2 trans sex workers who spend all day looking for a pimp and a prostitute. This movie is famous for being shot on iPhone 5s, and it still looks amazing. Sean used some trans women he found at a convention, and let me just say, these ladies give all-star performances, especially Cindy. She has me in tears every time I watch this movie. The shenanigans in this, the side story with the cab driver, it's all magic. I was quite fascinated when I first saw this. I mean, this movie started a lot of the Sean Bakerisms that we know and love today. Prostitutes, donut shops, sex scenes in cars. This movie is about love and friendship and how far one will go to help a friend. This movie is a masterclass of how to stretch a dollar, and that good actors, directions, and a good screenplay is all you need for a good film. This also has one of the best endings to a Sean Baker movie, one that technically leaves you with hope. Number 2, Red Rocket, 2021. So I went non-biased on this list and not with too much of my own personal loves, or else this movie would be at number 1. This is my personal favorite Baker film. Next to Tangerine, I think it's his funniest and one of his most unique. Draped in some of the most gorgeous cinematography I've seen of that year and one of the snappiest scripts, Baker was able to capture small town Texas and make this a main character in his movie. Next to the incredible Simon Rex, who I think should have gotten an Oscar nom for this role. Who would have thought he had this in him? Red Rock is about a former male porn star who goes back to his hometown because he is down on his luck. While he's there, he meets someone who may be his way back into the industry. This movie is fun and hilarious from start to finish. These are some of his most interesting characters and some that also feel very real and familiar. Everyone has known someone like Mikey, Lexi, or even Strawberry. I can watch this movie anytime, and it is a personal favorite film of mine. I think he should have gotten just as much praise for this as he did for Anora, but this one might be a little too uncomfortable for most watchers. Number 1, The Florida Project, 2017. Well, Top of the Mountain, the movie that should have been Anora before Anora. Now, I know this doesn't have a lead like Mikey Madison and a familiar story like Anora, but we get Willem Dafoe, and god damn it, this movie smacks on all levels. The Florida Project is about a young woman and her daughter living in a budget motel right outside of Disney World, and they do whatever they gotta do to survive. When I first saw this movie, I was blown away. Not just from the great story, gorgeous and colorful cinematography, or the real and grittiness of it, but how about one of the best child performances of all time from Brooklyn Prince as Mooney? We can't sleep on Bria Vinatai either. She kills it as Haley for her first time performance. This movie is funny, yet so tragic and heartbreaking. In such a pretty world, we see such ugly things, such struggles, and failing to just catch a break and figure it out. This movie raises a lot of questions. Are we all products of our environment? Are we doomed to the fate of our parents? Can you overcome a situation that you see no way out of? Everyone takes something different away from this movie, and maybe one day I'll review it and give my honest opinion on what Baker was trying to say here. The best thing about this is, although yes, we see some characters we will inevitably disagree with, but Sean doesn't make us feel that way about them. He lets us absorb and take it all in. The world, the atmosphere, the attitude. Willem Dafoe got an Oscar nom for this, but how this was not up for Best Picture, Director, and Screenplay is beyond me. This movie should have been Baker's coming out party, but somehow this movie got completely lost in the sauce that year. Was a big year. But this is his masterpiece, his crowning achievement. No awards can tell you that. Only the work can. Guys, thank you so much for watching my Sean Baker Ranked. Let me know your Sean Baker Ranked in the comments. I'm sure you guys will disagree with me on a lot of my picks and where I put them, and I would love to hear why. If there is a film or topic you guys would like me to review, let me know and I'll cover it after the Oscars. Guys, like and subscribe if you made it to the end. I appreciate the help. Please help me hit my goal of 700 subs by the end of spring. Follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader. I'll link that below. I got a podcast with my buddy, The Cutting Room Floor. I'll link that below for more movie content. I'll be back next week. And don't forget the popcorn. And guys, Oscar predictions next week. So definitely subscribe so you can catch that. Peace.